The CDC has been monitoring pregnancy-related deaths since the late 80s, and over the years, the numbers have steadily increased. Now, just over 2,700 pregnancy-related deaths were reported between 2011 and 2014. Numbers show 12.4 deaths were reported among white women, 17.8 among women of other races, and black women have the highest number at 40 deaths per 100,000 births. Through a 3 on Your Side investigation, our Symphony Privet uncovers what's behind the disparity and what is being done here in Mississippi to change that.
African American women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during pregnancy.
It's a statistic that's hard for many to understand. Dr. Michelle Owens, an OBGYN physician and board-certified maternal fetal medicine specialist at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, says issues with blood pressure or heart function, blood clots in the legs or lungs, and hemorrhage are some of the most common risks women face. Why are African American women particularly at a higher risk? Dr. Owens says it starts with many having lower socioeconomic status and level of education.
What we've learned is that for African American women, those things, if you control for those things, you still see increasing risks and increasing deaths among African American women. So it's not that simple.
She adds there are several other issues that contribute to this shocking statistic: a woman's health before becoming pregnant, being uninsured or underinsured, consistent exposure to toxic stress, quality of care, and access to care. Take a look at this map from the March of Dimes, highlighting which states have the highest and lowest access to maternity care. The March of Dimes reports nearly half of the counties in Mississippi are considered maternity care deserts, which are counties with no hospital that is staffed appropriately to provide care for pregnant women and no OBGYNs or certified nurse midwives to care for them.
There's also the issue of, which we've not really spoken about very much in the past, but this issue of implicit bias within the healthcare system.
Dr. Owens says it's important for those in the healthcare system to work on possible implicit biases and make sure they're delivering culturally competent and quality care. However, she says unresolved issues aren't always related to possible bias, but rather a lack of communication.
I think it's very common for women to feel as though they aren't listened to. And I don't think that that's an African American woman thing. I think that there's a problem with women feeling empowered to speak up, and then when they finally do, feeling as though they are listened to and they are heard.
April Coleman, a mother of 5, shared her experience of having to get an episiotomy during her first childbirth.
I'm telling them, like, hey guys, something's not right here, but they didn't do anything about it.
Prior to the procedure, she says she tried to tell medical staff that epidural did not work.
And I just screamed and I kicked him because he was right there and he was cutting. And so he was like, you know, he cursed at me like, what the are you doing? And I said, you just cut me, and I felt all of it. And he looked at the nurse, and the nurse looked at him, and he was cursing. It was chaos in the room.
In a future pregnancy, Coleman was diagnosed with preeclampsia, one of the complications that contributes to a higher risk of death for black women. When she was preparing to go into labor, she says,
they gave me way too much blood pressure medication, and I went to get up to go to the restroom, and that's all I remember.
Coleman's husband told her she passed out once she made it to the restroom.
I'm down there, and they gave me blood pressure medication. And I went upstairs, and they gave me more blood pressure medication. And then maybe 4 hours later, they gave me more blood pressure medication. So I really think they gave me too much.
In the midst of all those trips, Coleman says she didn't raise any questions about how often she was being given medication.
I didn't ask because, you know, you think that they're giving you the best care. So you don't want to question what they're doing.
Dr. Owens says signs not being recognized as critical is something that goes beyond economic status or education level.
Sometimes people need to stop and make sure that they are truly listening to women, because time and time again you hear these stories of women who come in and they've presented to the hospital 4 or 5 times sometimes before somebody actually recognizes there's a problem.
Dr. Owens almost became a statistic. She nearly died from hemorrhaging after giving birth.
At first I thought, okay, this is still kind of common. My bleeding had slowed down, and then it started to pick up again.
She continued to monitor her bleeding at home.
And it just started getting more heavy and brisker over time.
Owen's husband went to pick up medication to help slow the bleeding, but even that didn't work.
Well, I immediately went to the hospital, and I'm really glad that I did that, because I continued to bleed and had to have emergency surgery in order to stop the bleeding. To think that this is something that I do every day, and I've treated so many women who've suffered from hemorrhage, and to have that happen to me was really eye-opening.
Dr. Owens says maternal mortality or morbidity are serious problems for women, but it should also be seen as an opportunity to look at how improvements can be made.
I think it's also a tremendous opportunity for the healthcare profession to be able to really take a hard look at how we've done things in the past and to make the necessary changes to do better in the future, because this is something that affects every single one of us, and I think the women and the children and the families of Mississippi deserve that.
Simply Privet reporting there. Here's how Mississippi stacks up. Dr. Owens tells us Mississippi is 32 in the nation for maternal mortality rates. Let's break that down. This chart shows data the CDC collected. For black women, there were 28.7 deaths reported per 100,000 births. For white women, 18 reported. Dr. Owens says there are several initiatives underway here in Mississippi to help get a better understanding of maternal mortality and to make sure work is done to lower the high rates. You can find that information on our website, WLBT.com.